Thank you, everybody. It's my pleasure to be here. This is the first time I've been invited to this conference. And as you could tell from my bio, that my role at CIRM is a program lead. I lead a group of program officers that oversee our discovery and education stage programs. But I'm here to tell you today about all of the programs and funding opportunities that CIRM has and share more information about that might be of interest to you. So my talk today, I'm going to go over CIRM's mission, history, impact, and our goals for going forward. I'll give you a description, a high-level description of our current programs and funding opportunities that are open right now. I'll give you a very brief introduction and overview of our application and review process. I then will very briefly give you a sneak preview of some new programs that we expect to be launching later this year that might be of interest. And finally, I will share some resources and infrastructure that have been developed that may be available to applicants for our programs or grantees within our programs. So the mission of CIRM is to accelerate world-class science to deliver transformative regenerative medicine treatments in an equitable manner to a diverse Californian world. We are a funding agency that funds research and development. We were created and funded by the people of California. We began in 2004 with the passage of Proposition 71, which provided $3 billion in funding to support, at the time, a high-level goal of supporting research with human embryonic stem cells, which were under federal restrictions for funding at the time. A second tranche of funding extended our lifespan in 2020 with the passage of Proposition 14, which provided another $5.5 billion in funding for us to continue to support our research. Some new elements were added to our mission with the passage of Proposition 14. This is a set-aside of $1.5 billion specifically for research and development of diseases of the central nervous system. It also put genetic therapy or gene therapy approaches squarely within our purview, in addition, building on what we have already been doing in the stem cell and regenerative medicine space. So just a very brief history lesson. Since CIRM Proposition 71 passed in 2004, we've made over $4.6 billion worth of awards to over 1,400 projects. This adds up to 116 clinical trials, but from the early years, the majority of our previous funding has gone to earlier stage basic research. We also have over 4,300 participants who have been in these clinical trials, and industry funding to the tune of $25 billion plus has been raised as of assessment that was done a couple years ago. So how does CIRM make our investments? We really put funding into 5 different areas, or what we call pillars. The first 3 pillars are discovery, translation, and clinical. And this describes different stages of the research and development pipeline that you can see here. So discovery to us means foundational, basic research. At the point a single product candidate has been identified, it enters the realm of what we refer to as translational research, which is where you're doing the studies that are required to have a productive pre-IND meeting with the FDA, and eventually pursue IND-enabling studies and clinical trials through our clinical trial stage that you see there on the pipeline. And in addition to R&D, we support infrastructure programs, which are resources that can be used by grantees, and in some cases, this has included some brick and mortar infrastructure. For example, in the early years, shared labs were created for people to be able to work on human embryonic stem cells without mingling with federal funding. We also support a series of educational workforce development programs that train personnel, the current and future workforce, and I'll touch briefly on all of these programs for you today. These last 2 slides are just to give you a flavor of the types of disease areas and focus that CIRM supports. Regenerative medicine, stem cell biology, gene therapy is rather broad. We don't have any particular disease focus. So this is just 1 year of recent funding of all of our grants by disease area. You can see that we do see a lot of neuro. A lot of investigators in the state are pursuing neurological disorders, but you also see a decent representation of other areas as well. We also support a variety of modalities, different forms of gene therapy, different forms of delivery, and including at some stages we fund certain types of biologics, CAR T cells, et cetera. And this is just an example to show that our clinical trials are also covering a wide spectrum of disorders. It's a little bit different than what you see when you include the early stage disorders because the maturity of the science is more advanced and ready for clinical trials in some areas compared to others. I just want to briefly touch on our education and workforce programs. We have 4 that we are currently supporting. They go all the way from high school students doing summer internships in laboratories, doing regenerative medicine research. We have a Bridges program, which supports master's and associate degree students at California State universities and community colleges. It supports them for doing internships for up to a year in regenerative medicine laboratories. A Compass program is for earlier stage undergraduates and also provides summer internships. And we provide support for postdoctoral, predoctoral, and clinical fellows through our CIRM Scholars Program. And I'm going to come back to this because several of these internships are supported where the stipend is supported by a CIRM grant. And many of these interns gain a lot from doing their internship in a company setting. The companies also gain a lot from having them work there. What I've given you is a bit of a history of where CIRM came from and where we've gone, and now I'm going to tell you about where we're going. So we have a new strategic plan that was developed about 2 years ago. It's called the Strategic Allocation Framework, and this was an effort where a lot of portfolio data and outcomes from CIRM's research were analyzed, along with landscape analysis, to determine how to prioritize our remaining resources from Proposition 14 going forward. And what are the key goals that we would like to have for impact. And so a series of goals are part of the strategic plan. Not all of them are relevant for this talk, but the ones I want to highlight are the early discovery and translation stage goals, which are identifying and validating novel targets and biomarkers, accelerating the development of technologies that have the potential to improve safety, efficacy, and/or quality of cell and gene therapies. We're also interested in advancing rare disease projects to BLA and propelling therapies targeting diseases affecting Californians to late-stage trials. We also have goals around accessibility and affordability, aiming to have anything that comes out of this public initiative be available to as many people as possible and hopefully more affordable. And then, of course, we do have a goal around bolstering the workforce to train people who will be ready to adapt the technologies of today and tomorrow to help us achieve this mission. So now I'm going to go into a high-level overview of our currently open and active funding opportunities and I'll just go into a little bit of detail about each. If you're more interested in specifics, you can reach out to me afterwards and I can connect you to people who can tell you more. So currently we have the funding opportunities that you see depicted on this pipeline. We have 2 that support early stage research called DISC 4 and DISC 5. We have a program that supports preclinical development, which is shorthand called PDEV. And then we have a program that supports clinical trials called CLIN2. So first I'm going to go over the discovery program. So DISC 4 and DISC 5 are 2 complementary mechanisms that have a shared objective, which is to support comprehensive discovery research across a diverse range of diseases and bottlenecks to accelerate the development of potential therapeutics and biomarkers in regenerative medicine. So one of the main differences between these 2 awards is the scale of the award and the maturity of the research. And these programs are intended to function independently and together and in collaboration with other CIRM programs to kind of synergistically inform and advance the field. So the DISC 5 funding opportunity, I'm going to go through this first. This is a smaller award. It's some people compare it to an R21 award at the NIH, but basically it supports exploratory, innovative research through pairs of investigators. So the pairs of investigators mean the principal investigator and a co-principal investigator who are sort of contributing equally. So the team would be the 2 California-based leaders and any other key personnel. The total award amount is $2.5 million, and the maximum duration of the award is 3 years. This opportunity is currently open. The applications are due January 30th, so I know that's coming up very soon, but this is an opportunity that will be supported annually. So just to give you an idea of the scope, again, they support exploratory and innovative foundational research that advance our understanding of human stems and progenitor cells as they pertain to human health and disease. They could advance the use and impact of stem cells in the exploration of disease mechanisms and therapeutic target discovery, identifying biological insights to address key bottlenecks in stem cell and gene therapy and other regenerative medicine approaches, or advancing applicability of stem cell and gene therapy and other regenerative medicine approaches to diverse human populations. So any one of these areas, if it touches on that, it could potentially be well aligned with this program. It doesn't have to meet all four. The next program is our DISC-4 funding opportunity, which has a similar objective, but it's a much larger and more ambitious type of program. It's led by large collaborative teams of at least 5 investigators, so 1 central PI, and 4 kind of co-principal investigators that each would lead their own part of this collaboration. The total award amount here is $13 million, and it's possible to go up to $14 million if equivalent matching funds are provided. The duration of this program is 4 years. Now, this program includes a pre-submission process, which is kind of like a letter of intent, and that's because these applications are pretty large and complex. So teams submit a pre-submission where they kind of provide an overview of the overall project, and then the top-ranked ones will be invited to submit full applications, which will be due in November. So we have a June deadline coming up for the pre-submission. So the scope of it is very similar to DISC-5, but more ambitious, discovering novel mechanistic insights that can advance our understanding of the pathobiology of human diseases, extending understanding of disease mechanisms to diverse populations, and identifying and validating novel therapeutic strategies, targets, and biomarkers. So we encourage these teams to have industry involvement, ideally one of the co-investigators from industry, but at least some collaboration, because ultimately we want the discoveries from this to lead into a pipeline that can go into and benefit therapeutics or biomarker, or identify biomarkers that could help deliver more effective therapeutics down the road. One thing to know about DISC-4 is that while it is open without restrictions in topic or specific disease area, there are priorities that are set annually by our board. In the current round that is in review right now, the priority was neurologic diseases. I expect it will be a different priority area in the next award cycle. So our board will determine what that preference will be in our March board meeting, and then the RFA will be posted for this program so that the applications that are due in June can focus around this preference area. So the next opportunity I want to tell you about supports preclinical development. This is a fairly new opportunity called PDEV for short. The objective of this program is to accelerate preclinical stem cell-based and gene therapy candidates to IND clearance. This award maximum is $13 million, and it's a 5-year award. This program also has a pre-submission process, and those forms will be due in June as well. So this is just, this is a busy slide, and you don't have to read all of it, but I'm using this slide to kind of illustrate how this program works. There's 2 forms of this award. There's an early stage and a later stage award. In both cases, the goal of the program is to file an IND and have it clear. So for an early stage program, we're targeting projects that have already identified a candidate with some evidence of disease-modifying activity or proof of concept that is ready for a larger investment. So the preliminary data should be sufficient to justify what is going to be a much larger investment in the candidate. And it allows activities focused on getting ready for development, such as candidate optimization, formulation, pilot dose range filing, pilot safety, toxicology, thinking about the clinical development plan and protocol, and having an early interaction with the FDA, such as an interact meeting or pre-IND meeting. The second, or the late stage PDEV, is for programs that are a little bit more mature, have already had a pre-IND meeting with the FDA, and are ready to move into IND-enabling activities, such as your GLP studies, your GMP manufacturing of the product, and clinical protocol development. And so, depending on the stage of your research, you can apply for one or the other of the stages of award. Now, this program also is highly subscribed, and so there are some areas of priority that have been set by our board. These are the priorities that are set for our current program that is in development, and again in March, our board will be taking a look at these and making any adjustments if they deem it necessary. But currently, the preference topics for this program and the one I'm going to talk about next are mostly shared. That includes innovation in next-generation modalities, such as in vivo gene therapies and non-viral delivery mechanisms, pluripotent stem cell-derived therapies, getting back to CIRM's original mission, therapies treating disorders of the central nervous system, and progression from an earlier CIRM investment in an earlier stage award that has moved through development to an appropriate stage of maturity. For the PDEV program specifically, having already had an interaction with the FDA, for example, through an Interact meeting, can give a little bit of weight in the pre-submission process, as well as the disease portfolio balance. If it's an approach that you can look at previous CIRM grants, and if it's something that's very similar to something that we've already supported quite a bit, it might not have as much of an advantage as something that's kind of an innovative and new angle on something. And finally, I want to tell you about our CLIN2 funding opportunity. This is a program that supports stem cell-based and gene therapy clinical trials. These can be trials that are first in human, phase 1, phase 2, and it is even possible to apply for support of a phase 3 or pivotal trial. Now, this program, there is some co-funding that is required depending on your organization. You can see that listed here and in the program announcement. It's a little more for for-profit applicants than for academic applicants. This is a 4-year award, and applications for this program will be due at the end of June, and this is a program that recurs a few times a year. So the scope of this award is, again, phase 1, 2, or 3 clinical trials, including registrational trials using a regenerative medicine therapeutic approach. And you can see a list of the types of activities that are covered here, which in addition to the actual activities related to doing the clinical trial include outreach and inclusion, and there will be some emphasis on developing a plan for access and affordability. Again, this is a repeat of the slide I showed earlier that shows the areas of preference, which come into play if a very large volume of applications come in, more so than our budget or operations can process. So the things that could add a little bit of weight in that early pre-qualification step include having a priority FDA designation such as RMAT, pivotal clinical trials, being a California-based organization, and then scientifically some of those modalities that you see listed there. We also have 2 funding opportunities for training workforce, our SPARK program, which supports summer internships for high school students, and a new program called Educate, which supports students all the way from associate degree level to master's level from our California state universities and community colleges to support internships in laboratories. I mentioned this not because a company would apply for these. These are grants that go to academic institutions like the UCs and Stanfords of the world. However, those students that are being trained there are supported to do internships in host laboratories, which can include companies. And many of our Bridges students, in fact, are doing internships and have gone in to do them in companies. This can be a real benefit to the company because the stipend and the payment for the trainee comes from a CIRM grant. So it's all, I don't want to say free labor, but it's, you don't have to worry about paying them from your company's resources, and they come well trained and prepared to work in a laboratory. Many companies have actually hired some of these students and have who often stay in the companies, or they go directly into the workforce as soon as they graduate, or in some cases they choose to go to graduate school. So I just want to mention that we have active programs, and they're all going to be applying, as well as new programs, for another 5 years. So I'm just mentioning this because there's the possibility that some of your companies could potentially benefit from some of these trainees. So now let me tell you just a little bit about the application and review process, which has some similarities and some differences from other funding organizations that you may have worked with. So our applications are done online, but they consist of 2 components, an online section and a series of uploads. In order to open an application, all you have to do is create a login at our website, grants.cirm.ca.gov. If you already have a login, then you don't need to know this, but if you don't have one, you can create one, and then you click on a link called Open Programs, and you'll be able to see all of the programs that are currently accepting applications. And you can start an application, whether you apply or not, just to see what they involve. And what you can see in the screenshot is there are a series of sections online that you complete with the table of contents along the left. And then there are a series of uploads that are attached for your submission. This includes the proposal, which is where you are describing the bulk of your research project, biosketches, other support. If you're a for-profit applicant, you provide a solvency worksheet to show that you have 6 months of cash on hand at the time of application. This is also where you upload letters of support, the timeline for the project, and then any program-specific forms that might be specific to whichever you're applying for. The review process is done by a group called the Grants Working Group, which are scientific experts that are from outside of California. That's required by the proposition that created CIRM. Consists of 15 scientists covering a breadth of expertise. So when an application is submitted, traditionally a quick eligibility screen is done by the CIRM team. Any eligible applications then go to review by the Grants Working Group, which look for merit, so significance and innovation, feasibility, kind of the traditional review criteria, and they score the applications, and they make recommendations. Scores of 85 and up are recommended for funding. Scores of 84 and below are not recommended for funding. Those funding decisions, the funding recommendations are taken to our governing board, who then make the ultimate decision to fund. Now, this is the traditional review process. There are a couple of other things that can come into play when the volume of applications we receive is very high. As we heard from our colleague at Superit this morning, we are all experiencing a surge in applications and demand. And so we have to have some kind of triage mechanisms in place to help manage the total numbers of applications. So there are a couple of other processes that come into play when that situation arises. I already talked about one of them, the pre-submission process, which is kind of like a letter of intent. You submit a short application with an overview of a project, and then some of those will be selected to submit full applications. And then the second method is used only in the discovery or very early stage programs. It's called positive selection. That's a two-step review, where the first step, our Grants Working Group reviews all the pool of applications, and they each select a certain number to move forward to the second stage. And the second stage looks like what you see on your screen, where you receive scores and a funding decision. So who is the Grants Working Group? These are our peer reviewers. They evaluate the scientific merit. We have a large panel that represents a very broad subject matter, and 15 members from this large group are pulled into a given review based on the applications that come in. They provide scores for every application in that second stage or review. There are also some members of CIRM's governing board that are patient advocates, and a subset of them are also on the Grants Working Group. They provide their perspectives and look at the accessibility and affordability and certain aspects of the proposal from a patient perspective, and they can also make comments and recommend scores. Because our purview is so broad, we receive applications in the subject matter that can be new to us. And when that happens, we recruit additional external reviewers who have the specialized expertise necessary to comment on the merit of that approach. So now I've told you about what we have open now, and I'm just going to give you a very sneak preview of what's coming this year. These programs were all developed in the last year, and we're continuing our third phase of new programs. So the first thing that's going to come out from this new phase is a program called RAPID, which is an acronym for Rare Disease Acceleration Through Platform Innovation and Delivery. This is sort of a preclinical development stage program, but it's for a platform-based approach. This program is being discussed by our board today and is expected to go for approval at the end of this month. If all goes well, you can look forward to a program announcement for this program around April, and with applications that would be due in the fall. We are also planning to bring out some new programs later in 2026 to support technology development. We'll have a new workforce development program, and we expect to have a new clinical program and some programs to support data infrastructure. Last but not least, I want to get to some resources that could be available to to people, especially people who are interested in applying for awards or working with people who do. So I already mentioned our education and workforce programs. We currently have 60 active programs across the state. About 300, 400 trainees per year go through these programs. There's a lot of different levels available. They receive financial support from CIRM, and they do internships or fellowships in a research laboratory. The internships range, in some programs they're short, like summer internships, and in others they're for up to 1 year or longer. Companies with appropriate environments and resources are welcome to host and benefit from interns. Requires a collaboration with one of the holders of these awards, but if anybody's interested, we have a lot of information on our website about these programs, contacts for the program directors. You can also reach out to me directly, and I can tell you more about one that might be of interest to you and hook you up with the leadership of those teams. We also have developed a dashboard where you can find data that has been generated from CIRM Research Awards and where it's deposited. We encourage and require data sharing, especially in our early stage awards. And by the end of the awards, we like to have this data that is shareable, be findable, accessible, and interoperable so that people can repeat experiments or combine the data with their own to make new findings. And so this dashboard, anybody can look at it and start searching for data sets that might be of use. We also have the shared resource laboratories, which are a set of core laboratories that you can see at the institutions outlined here. They're there to provide expertise, particularly in stem cell modeling. So if you are interested in exploring something using organoid models, but you don't have anybody in-house with that expertise, you can work with any of these labs who can both provide you with models and with expertise. And we have a website that talks about the different facilities and the different services they offer. They offer a number of services in addition to stem cell models and expertise. So we're hopeful that these will make it easier for people to work together and exploit the power of stem cell-based models in their research. We have clinical infrastructure programs that support clinical trials through 9 leading medical centers across California. These are called the Alpha Clinics. They specialize in cell and gene therapies. There's a patient support program that can provide logistical and financial support to patients enrolled in CIRM-funded clinical trials through the Alpha Clinic or through one of our Clin2 programs. And a new program that we're just launching are the Community Care Centers of Excellence. And this is a program that's designed to increase access of regenerative medicine clinical trials to people who don't necessarily live close to a major medical center in other parts of the state. And we expect this to integrate with our CLIN awardees as well as our Alpha Clinics programs. And we do have a network of academic GMP facilities that we have supported to work together to try to accelerate and de-risk past commercialization. We all know that manufacturing is a huge hurdle that still remains to be resolved, especially for manufacturing cell therapies. And it's possible for, there are training certificate programs through this network, as well as the possibility of collaborating with them for advanced manufacturing. And you can find out more information about this program on our website as well. So I went through a lot of things today, and I went through it fairly quickly, but everything I talked about is on our website, and you are welcome to contact me directly with a question. If it's something about something another team manages, I can hook you up with the appropriate person, or I can share more directly, and you can visit our website there. And I hope you'll look at these opportunities, and if you have an opportunity to apply, we welcome. We will do consultations with you. So you can arrange for a consult before you submit your application, and we're happy to do what we can to help. So thank you very much. If we have any time, I can take a couple questions.
Thanks, Kelly. That was really good. I have a question about the financial terms of the grants. For context, I have 2 phase 1 trials with my biotech running here in California, and the asset fits the criteria for CIRM. It's spun out of the UC system, and so my university professor founders directed us to CIRM. At the same time, when I read it, is it true that for every $1 million of grant to fund a clinical trial, there's a royalty charge of 50 basis points? Because if that's the case, then if we took $8 million, it'd be a 4% royalty rate to CIRM. And then as we talk to our large pharma potential partners, there's quite a bit of pushback for taking money at that cost. So could you comment on the royalty burdens of the CIRM awards for clinical trials?
Yeah, so I'm actually not the best person to answer that because I work mainly with our discovery stage programs. But I can tell you that the royalties don't come into play unless something is commercialized. So is that something that you were aware of already? Or?
That would be on the minds of large pharma companies,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, so if it would be great if you come up to me afterwards and I can take your question specifically to somebody who can do a better job of answering it for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Two questions. First of all is, early on you said it was not all about cell and gene therapy. It includes small molecules and protein therapeutics. But almost every slide really focused on cell and gene therapy. So which is it? Are non-cell and gene therapies eligible for CIRM support?
This depends. So because of the way the propositions were written, there has to be a connection to a stem cell-based or gene therapy. So in the past, we've supported a lot of small molecule projects. Before gene therapy was in our mandate, we supported CAR T therapies. The argument to be made was that the mechanism of action involved a stem cell or a progenitor cell. So a small molecule, there has to be evidence that it targets an endogenous stem cell, right? Same thing with biologics and antibodies. However, we've also allowed for a role of a stem cell somewhere in the development process. So in the past, we've supported products that are small molecules or biologics where a stem cell-based model was used to either identify the therapeutic or to test it for safety or some other aspect that's required for development. So that's one way that kind of thing has been supported. With the addition of gene therapy, from Proposition 14, you no longer have to make the argument that there's a stem cell involved in the genetic therapy. So that has opened the door to some new things, but there still needs to be an argument that it's a genetic therapy.
Okay, second question is in that consortium of labs that have these stem cell-based assays, are there IP considerations? All of those sites are notorious for wanting to glom onto IP. So is the company protected?
So if it's a California-based company and the California company is the grantee, then yes. CIRM doesn't take any IP. The IP belongs with the grantee organization. So I don't think there's concerns about that unless you're collaborating with a group that's out of the state and supporting them with CIRM funds. There are regulations that say if you're supported with CIRM funds and you're not in California, you can only be supported if the IP that's generated from those activities go to the California grantee. So for later stage projects where there might not be any new IP generated, and you can manufacture your cells outside of California. If you're doing a clinical trial, if your clinical site is in California, but if certain activities are subcontracted or services out, that might not be an issue at all. It might be an issue in more of our earlier stage awards where everything is new and everybody might want any new IP that comes out of it. We do allow subcontracting to entities outside of California, even for our discovery stage awards, and many of them do a collaboration. It's just that the external party needs to be aware of and agree that the IP is going to stay with the California organization where the PI is based, and then they can decide what to do with that IP.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.